Not moving the rest of his body, Raphael cracked an eyelid open. Through the slit he could just barely make out the dark form, its outline glowing from the campfire's light. Yep, Griffin had collapsed in the flames. Again. With a sigh, Raphael forced his body up and moved to the slumped figure. He just stood over Griffin, shaking his head at the sight. Griffin was constantly battling insomnia. He would never admit whether it was a tactic to avoid the persistent nightmares, a ploy to get more work done, or if he honestly could not fall asleep. However, when sleep finally hit him, it took him down hard. Griffin had been perched upon a log and must have fallen forward when he conked out, since now his entire head and arms were bathed in flames. Thankfully, the journal he had currently been working in had not joined him in the fire. It instead landed closer to Griffin's leg, relatively out of harm's way. Raphael picked it up and placed it back on the log, just in case. He eyed Griffin, warily taking note of the precarious position of his exhausted friend. Positioning himself by Griffin's feet, he took a hold of both legs and tugged gently, unceremoniously dragging the smaller man out of the campfire. With his gloved hands, Raphael carefully patted out a few stray flames nestling in Griffin's auburn locks. Of course, Griffin suffered no burns. His face and upper body were simply a mess of soot and ashes. "Up you go," Raphael breathed, hefting Griffin into his arms. Although a dead weight, he had no trouble carrying Griffin over to his sleeping roll. Kicking it open, Raphael nudged it with his toe to unroll completely before laying his bundle onto it. Once back safely on the ground, Griffin immediately curled onto his side, his knees drawn to his chest and his fingers curled into loose fists by his cheeks. Raphael absent-mindedly took note of his deep, even breathing as he crouched down to cover Griffin with a blanket. As the fabric settled around him, Griffin murmured and gathered the cloth in his hands, cradling it to his chest. Raphael smiled and returned to his own bedding, satisfied that Griffin had finally fallen asleep and was secure in a relatively safe place. He prayed there would be no nightmares tonight to interrupt that much-needed, for once peaceful, slumber. I hope you liked this video and this story. Please give it a big thumbs up and subscribe. I hope you have a phenomenal day and keep being extraordinary. Bye!